A Game of Goblins. Galaka never intended to marry. She certainly never intended to marry a human. She was in the midst of slow roasting a halfling with peppercorn and chunks of wild apple when the screaming began. Cries of, "Humans!" and "Kill them all!" and "Run away!" echoed through the obsidian tunnels beyond the lair. Galaka ignored them. If the goblin guards killed the humans, it meant more meat for her stores. If the humans killed some goblins, it meant fewer mouths to feed. The humans won, like they usually did. Galaka heard panicked goblins retreating into the cavernous lair. They slid a heavy door of lashed-together pine logs to block the tunnel behind them. Mild curiosity made her swivel her ears to listen. "These humans are terrifying," gasped one of the guards, who'd presumably survived through the proud goblin tradition of running away and leaving his companions to die. "They're so grim and so dark, with eyes like fire and hearts like ice." "I thought it was the other way around," said another. A new voice, this one human, thundered from the tunnels. "I seek the Lord of the Goblins." "Seek quietly," Galaka yelled back. "Some of us are trying to cook." After a brief pause, the human continued. "I am the Wolf of the Winterlands, heir to the Onyx Throne." "They have a talking wolf," whispered a different goblin. "Someone tell the chief a wolf wants to talk to him," said the guard. Galaka grabbed her cleaver from the counter, just in case. "Open this door, and I will spare your miserable lives," the human continued. "Refuse, and suffer a massacre to rival the mourning every man, woman, and child of House Brianin was slaughtered over poached quail eggs. Even you savages must have heard tales of the Red Brunch." "What's a brunch?" the guard retorted. Axes thunked into the makeshift door. "Wait!" screamed at least half a dozen goblins. Being goblin-built, the door wouldn't have lasted long anyway. Wood scraped over stone as they struggled to open the door again. Galaka tested the edge of her cleaver and stepped forward for a better view. 5 humans stood at the entrance to the lair. Trail dust and weariness darkened their faces. 4 held heavy crossbows, ready to shoot. The 5th stood with sword in one hand, a flickering torch in the other. Goblins backed away, their own shoddy weapons shaking. One flattened his ears in fear as Galaka stood on her toes to try and see past the humans. "Where's the wolf?" "I am Samuel Lancaster, wolf of House Lancaster, bastard son of Ryan Lancaster, the Shadow Viper of the North." The human with the sword was tall and meaty, dressed in black leather and black furs. His black hair was shaggy and wind-snarled, his young, stubbled face calloused like bad leather. Another goblin cocked her head, her blue face crinkled with confusion. "If your father's a snake, how can you be a wolf?" Samuel ignored the question. "I would summon your leader to the conclave." "Our leader's sleeping off a clack beer hangover," said the goblin guard. "Is a conclave like a brunch?" asked another. The humans muttered amongst themselves. Samuel rubbed his brow. "Once every 10 years, the lords of the North gather at conclave to try to choose a high king to sit upon the Onyx Throne and rule the army of immortals." "Onyx Throne," Galaka muttered. "Sounds like a bad case of arse blisters waiting to happen." The human was still going on. For a century, each vote has ended in stalemate. My father would have been the first Lancaster to sit upon the throne, but he was betrayed and murdered on the night of 12 Blades. I mean to fulfill his destiny and restore our house. Goblins are not very good at building, said a goblin. If you want to fix a house, you should talk to the dwarves. The human stared, like he was trying to decide whether the goblins were mocking him or if they were simply idiots. Golaka could have answered that one. This was a mistake, Samuel said at last. The Conclave will never take these blue-skinned imbeciles seriously. A suggestion, my lord. One of the guards, a scarred man missing several teeth, stepped forward to whisper to Samuel, too quiet even for goblin ears to overhear. Whatever he said made Samuel's face turn red. Are you mad? It would give the delegate legitimacy. Samuel growled and studied each goblin in turn, until his gaze fell on Golaka. Those tiny human eyes widened. You, old woman. He hesitated. You are a woman. Golaka bared her fangs. The goblins skittered back in alarm. You will come with me, Samuel continued, as delegate of the goblins. I will garnish tonight's dinner with your liver is what I'll do. Golaka raised her cleaver. You don't frighten us, monster, said Samuel, though the way the guards shifted and pointed their weapons at her gave lie to his words. I fought and killed the boulder himself in the courts of Farathun. My men can kill you where you stand, and slaughter your fellow goblins for good measure. Or you can accompany me to the Conclave. Once I sit upon the onyx throne, you'll be free to return to this filthy, dark cave you call home. Golaka narrowed her eyes. 4 crossbows and a sword against 1 cleaver. That's it. Cast a vote and go. Samuel's thin lips twitched. There's also a minor ceremony. Yes, the squeak is the dog playing in the background. They rode throughout the day, the humans on thick, meaty horses, and Golaka on a mule whose spine seemed honed to split a goblin's backside. Dinner was tasteless jerky, tasteless bread, and cheese that made her wish for tastelessness. Afterward, the scarred guard pulled Golaka aside while the other humans made camp. With him was Samuel and a thin, bare-faced human with clenched fists. Samuel pulled a length of white rope from a pouch at his belt. This is Chael Lancaster, the hummingbird of House Lancaster. Hummingbird? Asked Golaka. He likes to hum. Samuel knotted one end of the rope around Chael's wrist. Father would behead you himself for this insult, hissed Chael. Samuel merely smiled and extended the rope toward Golaka. Try to leash me to that human and I'll pull out your intestines and hang you with them. Now it was Samuel's turn to scowl, while Chael smirked. The guard whispered something to Samuel, who shoved him away. Very well. Samuel dropped the rope, letting it hang like a snake from Chael's hand. Let this betrothal mark the alliance of House Lancaster and the goblins. Thomas Smoke, will you witness this contract? The guard squared his shoulders. I so witness. Samuel pulled a knife and cut away most of the rope, leaving the loop knotted around Chael's wrist. You'll sleep there tonight, he said, pointing to a small tent the color of human blood. Galaka shrugged and ducked through the tent flap. 2 battered sleeping mats lay on the ground. She sat down on one and scratched. The journey had left her stiff, sore, and sweaty in any number of cracks and crevices. Chael and Thomas followed her in. Chael pulled a knife, watching Galaka closely. "You think that toy would stop me if I wanted your guts for a late-night snack?" Galaka shifted to one side, farted loudly, then raked her hair back from her face. "I'm not going to kill you, human. At least, not while we're surrounded by your brother's guards." Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "What makes you think the knife was for you? I'm the one Samuel betrothed to a goblin." "You're not exactly a prize for me either, human." Galaka lay back on the mat. He sighed. "This is but the latest insult my brother has heaped upon me. So go out there and stab him in the face." "That's not how things are done, goblin. This is a civilized gathering." "Fine, stab him in the back." Galaka shrugged. "All this fuss over a stupid chair." "Whoever is chosen to sit upon the onyx throne will command the army of immortals," Chael said stiffly. "The houses have played this game for centuries, but none have gathered enough votes to claim the throne." "Humans always complicate things." She closed her eyes. "I assume your brother plans to kill me when this is over? Or is it more civilized if the guard does it?" "Thomas is only here as part of the betrothal ceremony. Chael's voice sounded strained. "To protect the virginity of the bride-to-be." Galaka opened one eye. "That meal was eaten years ago." "What a vulgar figure of speech," Chael said. "What makes you think it's a figure of speech?" With a chuckle, Galaka rolled over and went to sleep. They arrived early the next day at the Wall of the Dead, site of the conclave. The wall was a once mighty edifice of dark stone, 30 feet tall, encircling what Chael described as a plain of petrified trees and a lone crypt. Gray drizzle turned the ground to mud. A large open pavilion had been erected outside the wall, near an enormous rusted gate. Galaka counted at least 30 humans gathered in small groups, some within the pavilion, others standing close by. A stout man with a round face, curly gray beard, and flat cap was cooking porridge, burning porridge from the smell, over a fire. "Each house can send up to 6 people," explained Chael. "Advisors, guards, assassins. More houses will arrive throughout the day." Galaka rubbed her arms against the chill. She was used to the rippling heat of the cook fires back home. The cook looked up at their contingent and shouted, "Gorge!" Galaka stopped. "I don't understand." "That's Gorge. It's all he ever says. He's damaged in the head. He has no loyalty to any house, so he's the only person everyone trusts to cook for them." Galaka sniffed again. "You call that cooking?" Samuel strode ahead, calling greetings to some while pointedly ignoring others. "That's Marguerite of House Crowley," whispered Chael, pointing to a short, brown-skinned woman. Tufts of white down clung to her hair and cloak. "She was flung naked from the cliffs of St. Ives for unlawful fornication. She returned 2 days later atop a hippogriff. The hippogriff bit off her husband's head. She married her lover the next day, naming her queen at her side. She's called the Hippogriff Queen, mother of the north, and the bringer of storm clouds. That's a mouthful, said Galaka. Chell gestured next to an older man, pale with a wispy white beard. Lawrence of House Ashcroft, known as the Night Dagger. He's a member of the ancient Night Bears sect. 6 years ago, he orchestrated the Blood Moon Massacre that led to the downfall of House Whitlatch. You humans collect names like ogres collect lice. Galaka shut him out, mentally renaming each human things that she'd remember. Feather Lady, Greybeard, and so on. The head of House Hollister was One Eye. She'd apparently killed her predecessor by forcing him to drink molten lead. Her husband was Nosepicker. House Larch was led by Gaptooth, who was known for using hunting ravens with poisoned talons against his enemies. All Galaka stared about was keeping them from killing her. Judging from the way they stared, that might be tricky. What is this, Samuel? Demanded Feather Lady. If you've brought this creature to feed to my pets, I'm afraid it'll take a higher quality of snack to earn my favor. Samuel puffed up like a lizardfish trying to mate. He'd obviously been planning for this moment, probably practicing exactly what he'd say once the eyes of the conclave were upon him. This is Galaka, she cut in, called the Goblin Chef, cooker of humans. She is the delegate for her people, Samuel continued, with a glare at Galaka. The House of Goblins may be small and foul. Should House Larch now give a vote to our messenger ravens? Scoffed Gaptooth. Perhaps the rats who raid Ashcroft's grain stores would like a say as well. Samuel's hand went to his sword, a movement that caused the rest of the humans to step back and reach for their own weapons. She is my future sister-in-law, and I demand you apologize for your insult. It was amusing to watch the humans' attention turn back to Galaka, then shift to Chael and the white rope around his wrist. Some smirked. Others looked like they'd tried to get a bite of stew, only to find they dipped their spoons in the chamber pot by mistake. You'd tie your house to that creature? Asked Nosepicker. Gorge, added Gorge. The army of immortals has slept too long, Samuel said firmly. They will awaken soon, with or without a ruler. If we don't end this stalemate... House Hollister will never kneel to a Lancaster, pronounced One Eye. We remember your grandfather's betrayal at the Battle of Four Fleets. Hollow words from a descendant of the Mantis, snapped Feather Lady. Soon everyone was shouting, too loud and angry for Galaka to follow. She let it drag on until everyone was good and riled, then bellowed, Whoever wins this vote becomes High King and sits on the rock throne and rules the dead army. Yes? Yes, that's so, Samuel. Galaka cocked her thumb at Samuel. I'll vote for whoever kills this pile of pig dung. The reaction was instant, but not what she'd expected. Whereas goblins would have immediately swarmed Samuel, the humans simply looked bemused, all save Samuel, who was turning a vivid shade of red. You fool, he shouted. Do you realize what you've done? Galaka had expected Samuel to be furious, but why were the others so happy? Happy humans were never a good sign. Gorge, said the cook, shaking his head sadly. There are laws, Chael whispered. The conclave is a place of truce. To openly plot betrayal and murder. This monster is your responsibility, Samuel, said Feather Lady. Take her away and behead her so we can get on with our business. Right. These were humans. Betrayal and murder were fine, but you had to be sneaky about it. She should have remembered. Galaka bared her fangs and flexed her arms. Too late for regrets now. Wait, shouted Chael. You can't execute her. Quiet, snapped Samuel. Unless you wish to join this monster on the block. Would you kill a bride on the day of her wedding? Chael asked. What are you babbling about, brother? Galaka was equally confused, but said nothing. If Chael kept everyone distracted, she should at least be able to snatch Samuel's knife and plant it in his neck. Chael took Galaka's hand, ruining that plan. The goblin and I mean to be wed. You may have seen her only as a step toward power, brother, but I've come to respect and love Galaka. Samuel had gone from red to purple. Galaka hadn't realized humans could turn that color. It's an obscenity, he hissed. You would make a mockery of our house. Only its lord, Chael shot back in an equally low voice. You're the one who defended the goblin moments ago, One Eye pointed out with a chuckle. Looks like you're trapped in your own snare. To deny the boy's wedding would prove your own words hollow. Would you dishonor House Lancaster in front of all assembled here? Very well, said Samuel through gritted teeth. Tie her up and lock her in the crypt for now. She can be wed tonight and executed in the morn. Since my brother is so protective of his betrothed, throw him in as well. Let him enjoy what time he has left with his beloved. The crypt smelled of old blood. Galaka swiveled her ears, tracking the scratching footsteps of rats in the darkness. To her right, Chael grunted as he struggled with his bonds. Why the crypt? Asked Galaka. It's the only building within the wall of the dead that's still standing. I'm sorry. I hoped for more than a day's reprieve. Galaka tested the ropes knotted about her wrists. The humans knew their rope craft. Nothing short of a blade would free her hands from behind her back. The thinnest sliver of light pierced the crack at the edge of the door. As her eyes adjusted, she made out Chael hunched on the floor by the wall. A series of stone tables stood in the center of the room, each with a body upon it. Other corpses had been stuffed head first into open chambers in the rear wall. She leaned over the closest table and sniffed. Doesn't smell dead, just dusty. This is the army everyone's worried about? The army of immortals, Chael whispered, like he feared to wake them. Centuries ago, they served the Winter King during the 3-Day War. They're sworn to obey the High King and to defend him against all enemies. But if they awaken without a High King, they might decide everyone is an enemy. So chop them up and be done with it. Or burn them. Lots of ways to dispose of dead humans. You think it's not been tried? Burn them and they reform. Lock them in chains, and the links rust and fall away. Cut one up and seal the parts in a chest, and they break through the chest to return here. Every midnight they recover from whatever has been done to them. They're unstoppable. Humans. Bad enough you want to control everything that lives. Now you have to control the dead, too. She walked over to kick the door. It was like kicking a mountain. All she got was a sore foot and an angry shout from one of the guards outside. The air passing through the narrow crack smelled of badly overspiced meat from the cook fire. You humans, you don't like that man's cooking, do you? We hate it, Chael admitted, but nobody dares say so to Gorge's face. In his day, he killed more people in more horrible and gruesome ways than anyone can count. They called him the Red Reaper, though I'm told his real name was Martin. And the gorge thing? Some say he was struck with the gift of prophecy, and it's a warning of future threat, one even he doesn't understand. Most houses avoid gorges and canyons and valleys just to be safe. I say he was struck one too many times on the head. Or one time too few, she muttered. Why'd you try to get your brother to spare me? Because it was the right thing to do. Some Loncasters still believe in honor. She snorted. Try again, human. You think you're the first to try to lie to Golakka? I wanted to humiliate my brother, he said with a sigh. Bringing you to the conclave was a desperate gamble. Your betrayal made him a laughingstock. For that alone, I'm in your debt. Good to know. Do any of these dead humans have weapons? If not, maybe we could use their bones for clubs or break them to stab with. That's disturbing. Even if we could, you'd be lucky to kill even one before they cut you down. He sighed. If only we could persuade the other houses to intervene on your behalf. If you were pardoned, it would be another slap to Samuel's smug face. Golakka sniffed the air again, a new idea beginning to form. Human weddings usually involve a feast, yes? That's right. As bride-to-be, I think I ought to prepare my own feast. You mean to poison them? You can't. They use silver plates and cups, enchanted to detect poison. Poison wastes a perfectly good meal, Golakka snapped. You claim to be a good chef? Golakka shoved him to the ground and stepped on his chest. How about I roast you when we find out? Chael tried to squirm free. I believe you. Golakka removed her foot from his chest. He hurried to the door. Guard, I need to speak to my brother about my wedding preparations. To Golakka, he said, if you're to impress the other houses, you'll need to prepare a meal worthy of kings and queens. Golakka smiled, a smile that had been known to make other goblins wet themselves. Fortunately, it was too dark for Chael to see. It will be fully worthy of them. I promise you that. Samuel only agreed after Chael pointed out the additional shame that would fall on House Lancaster if the wedding lacked a palatable feast. She can't do any worse than gorge, Samuel had grumbled, but she's to be accompanied by guards at all times. That worked out well. Golakka pointed to the clump of brown mushrooms growing in the shade of the wall. You, with the beard like a rat's nest, grab those mushrooms. The guard hesitated. I don't think I should. You'd rather help clean boar kidneys? Fine. She spun without waiting for an answer, stabbing her finger at the second guard. We passed a stand of nettles yesterday on the way in. I need some. Gather more wood, too. Long, thin branches for skewers, and logs for the fires. Fires? More than one? That's right. One with flames chest high to start. Another burned down to the coals. And you, get me a bucket. Why do you need a bucket? Golakka threw up her hands. To piss in! Unless you expect me to drop my drawers and go right here? To her left, Chael muffled a laugh. Golakka's mouth twitched, but she stifled her own amusement and whirled. Why are you just standing there, my betrothed? Someone's got to finish butchering that boar, and these idiots won't give me a knife. Get to work. But Gorge already started roasting it, Chael protested. The cook stood with folded arms a short distance away. Touched in the head or not, he watched the proceedings like a hawk. Started burning it, you mean, said Golakka. The skin's ruined. It tastes like ash. We need to cut the burnt meat away and start over. Gorge shrugged. Gorge, he said apologetically. Golakka snatched the bucket from the guard and stomped toward the crypt. "You can't go in there," the guard called after her. "It's the only private place inside this wall, and I don't think Samuel wants me wandering loose among the trees outside. Do you? I'm sure the dead humans won't mind. Now get to work." It wasn't long before the smell of roasting meat began to overpower the humans' skepticism. "More wine!" Galaka bellowed. Chael slapped a half-empty bottle into her hand. He was turning out to be a halfway competent helper, though the humming was annoying. She downed several swallows, then poured the rest over the chops, making them sizzle. Tossing the bottle aside, she moved to the bed of coals. She used a blackened stick to flip the long strips of meat she'd laid out. Judging them done, she scooped them up onto the silver platter held by one of her guards. "Get those skewers ready. Ratbeard, have you finished grinding the marrow paste yet?" "It smells good," whispered one of the humans. Feather Lady, the one with the hippogriffs. Galaka wondered briefly what hippogriff tasted like. "Probably poisoned," sneered Samuel. Galaka grabbed a strip of meat and bit off the end. Chewing happily, she said, "If you're afraid, don't eat it. More for the rest of us." Several humans chuckled. The cook smirked and added, "Gorge." "Keep that platter covered," Galaka barked at one of the guards. "Chael, dig the roots out of the coals. They need to be mashed, then mixed with the marrow and chopped thistle leaves. You, the fire for the roast needs more wood. No pine, though. The smoke's wrong for boar." She marched over to another guard and sniffed his work. "What this paste needs is a nice garnish of fire spider eggs." The crowd had grown. Galaka wiped her hands on her shirt and scowled. "Staring and drooling won't make the chops cook faster." Chael cleared his throat. "It's almost sunset. Traditionally, weddings are performed while the sun shines, preferably outdoors, without any hiding places for assassins or ambushes, with all weapons peacebound." He shrugged. "We've had issues with weddings." "Gorge," agreed the cook, stroking his beard. Samuel tugged his brother away from the cook fires. He spoke low enough to prevent human ears from overhearing. "You truly wish to marry this beast? You'd tarnish our house out of spite? What would Father say?" Chael swatted Samuel's hand away and whispered back, "I imagine he'd order you imprisoned for assassinating him." "So be it." Surprisingly, Samuel didn't appear angry. "You'll see him soon, brother. While you sullied yourself with the goblin, I've negotiated a new alliance. I'd prefer not to share the Onyx throne, but this is better than seeing the army of immortals under someone else's control." "Which house?" Chael demanded. "You won't be around long enough for it to matter." Samuel turned away to shout, "Friends of House Lancaster, let us gather for the union of the hummingbird, Chael Lancaster, son of the shadow viper of the north, with Galaka." The humans formed a large, loose circle around Samuel, Chael, and Galaka. A circle with plenty of room between groups. Samuel grabbed the bit of rope hanging from Chael's hand. "By my authority as head of House Lancaster, I give Chael to this woman." "Who gives this goblin to Chael?" The scarred guard, Thomas, started forward, but a glare from Galaka stopped him. "I give myself," she snapped. "Very well." Samuel stepped back. "Who witnesses this contract?" As one, the gathered humans shouted, "We so witness!" All save the cook, who shouted, "Gorge!" Samuel nodded. "I pronounce you wed. Kiss your bride, brother." "Try it and I'll bite your lips off." Galaka glanced around. "That's it?" "The longer the wedding, the more opportunity for treachery. Chael swallowed, took Galaka's hand, and planted a quick kiss on the knuckles. Samuel means to kill us both, he whispered. We should try to escape tonight, before... Back to work, Goblin. Samuel pointed to the cook fires. After the feast, you and my brother can celebrate your wedding night in the privacy of the crypt. Behind locked doors, with guards to ensure you're not disturbed. Chael sagged, his eyes dull with defeat. Cook now. Pout later. Galaka shoved her way toward the fires. Where are my guards? Those mushrooms won't slice themselves. Galaka stabbed a boar chop with her nails and brought it to her lips. She tore a generous bite from the edge, chewed and nodded. It's ready. She grabbed another piece of meat and tossed it to Chael. She watched with amusement as the humans struggled between revulsion at the idea of eating goblin-cooked food and the craving of their empty bellies. As it always did, hunger won out. One by one, the humans brought their silver plates and helped themselves. Chael started to go back for one of the paste-coated slabs of boar, but Galaka caught his shoulder. My husband tasting like marrow salt on our wedding night. Or wild onions, so avoid the skewers as well. Chael paled. You don't really mean to... Galaka laughed and punched him hard enough to knock him to the ground. Like you'd survive a night with me. Gorge, added the cook, laughing. Galaka stiffened as one of the humans, Nosepicker, approached her. But the human was beaming as he tore meat from a skewer with his teeth. This is quite good, he said, his words muffled. Delectable, called Greybeard. And this paste, added Feather Lady. You must share your secrets before your execution. Samuel Lancaster, it would be a crime to kill an artist of such skill, announced One Eye. Chael grabbed Galaka's hand, seemingly without realizing what he was doing. It's working. You'd petition to save a goblin? Samuel demanded. Eat one of these chops before you decide. Nosepicker shoved his plate in Samuel's face. I insist. Galaka finished her own meat and absently sucked grease from her fingers. All are in agreement, said Feather Lady. Don't look so glum, Samuel. House Crowley will happily buy this creature from you. House Ashcroft's coffers are deep enough to match any price. Think of your grandfather's long friendship with House Hollister. Give the goblin to us as a gift. Shut your gobs, Galaka bellowed. The humans fell silent, their mouths round with shock. You're saying either the bastard here executes me in the morning, or else I spend the rest of my days serving humans. Is that it? What are you doing? Whispered Chael, trying to tug her back. That's right, said Feather Lady. Though you'll have to learn to mind your... Galaka cut her off with a loud, drawn-out belch. I'd sooner cut out my own liver and fry it up in lizardfish oil than live as a slave to you spoiled, scheming, power-mad humans. She pulled away from Chael and started toward the crypt. Enjoy the feast. Are goblins so proud they'd rather die than cook for humans? Chael asked from the darkness of the crypt. Goblins? Proud? Galaka laughed. We're monsters. The difference between us and you is that we know it. You humans have spent centuries finding new and gruesome ways to kill each other. You've turned it into a game. Goblins are no better, Chael snapped. We don't pretend to be. Why haven't you killed your brother yet? It's not that simple. I can't just... Exactly. Because human games have rules. Chael moaned. This place smells like death. That was me. Human wine gives me gas. A piercing scream made Chael jump. Golaka simply leaned against the wall beside the door. "Where is this onyx throne, anyway?" asked Golaka. "It's said it will appear when the High King is chosen." A growling, gurgling sound came from the other side of the door. One of the guards groaned and whispered to his partner, "Too many of them skewers." Hasty footsteps signaled his departure. Golaka stretched her shoulders the best she could. Samuel had bound her arms again, more out of spite than any real fear of what she might do. "What time do you think it is?" "How should I know?" More screams filled the air outside. The remaining guard hurried away. "One of the houses must have plotted betrayal," said Chael. Golaka yawned. "Did you notice how much burnt boar we had to throw out? There wasn't enough meat left to feed all of you humans. So I fetched some extra." "How?" "From the crypt. A couple of those dead soldiers stacked up in the back." You what?" Chael sounded faint. "You had no knife? No—" "I had fangs and I had a bucket." "Remind me, what happens to those dead soldiers if you chop them up? Or chew them up?" "The pieces return at midnight," Chael whispered. "Through any barrier. Merciful God, you'll kill us all. We have to vomit before—" "Quit whimpering. I made sure to prepare a couple of untainted pieces for us. The rest, well, anyone who smeared marrow paste on their meal, or ate one of those skewers, or tried the stew." She tried the door, but it didn't budge. "Maybe you can call this one the Night of the Bloody Privies." Chael didn't answer. He didn't speak at all for the next hour, though he moaned when small shapes like ragged, bloody caterpillars began crawling beneath the door to rejoin the bodies Golaka had taken them from. Only when the last of the screams had died did he stir. "We're trapped in here. If the army of mortals doesn't awaken and destroy us, we'll starve to death." "Not me," said Golaka. "Not while I have you around." Chael moaned again. "You think I want to eat raw human? Besides, we're not trapped. First thing every goblin learns is always to have a plan for running away. If I'm not mistaken, you're now head of your house, and the only other survivor of this conclave." "Most likely," Chael admitted. "Case, delegate of the goblins, I vote for Golaka as High King." She paused. "Way I see it, you can vote for me, and I'll order these dead bastards to break down the door and escort us home. Or vote for yourself, and it's another tie, meaning we're stuck in here and I rethink the idea of eating uncooked human." "I vote for Golaka as well." "Right." She looked around. "Dead humans, get your arses up and break open that door." For several moments, nothing happened. Then bodies rustled. Footsteps shuffled across the floor. Golaka and Chael backed away as dead fists assaulted the door. None of the dead humans spoke. The quiet was a nice change from the past day or so. The door cracked and fell away. Moonlight and fresh air flooded the crypt. Golaka shoved past the dead humans and stepped outside. A few bodies lay scattered across the ground. Most had died near the privies and latrines. Chael began to laugh. It was the kind of laugh that brought to mind the shattering of glass or the breaking of ill-tempered steel. You're High King of the Winterlands. A goblin. You could conquer everything." Golaka scowled. "Sure, but where would I put it?" She took a knife from one of the bodies and awkwardly sawed through her bonds. These dead bastards have caused you humans more than a century of grief. You think I need that kind of headache? I've got a whole layer of goblins for that. Goblins who probably made a bloody mess of my kitchen by now, stuffed themselves in my stores, swiped all my best knives. Galaka jabbed a finger at the closest of the immortal army. You, guard Chael and see him home. Do whatever he tells you. Her finger moved to the next group. You four, find that silly throne. The rest of you, drop dead. And this time, stay that way. The army of immortals collapsed. All save the ones Galaka had indicated. Chael stared at the bodies, then at Galaka. They're really dead. The army, my brother, the conclave. Everyone, agreed Galaka. Seems fitting that the greedy bastards gorged themselves to death. I'm head of House Lancaster now. I'll need advisors of my own. And a chef. You could be both if you wanted. Not as a slave or servant, but I don't think so. Galaka started to walk away. You know, you've decent skill at the cook fires. I could use a helper back at the lair. Do a good enough job, and the other goblins probably won't eat you. Chael shuddered. No, thank you. Beyond him, the other dead soldiers had returned, staggering beneath the weight of a gleaming onyx chair, black with long, wispy clouds of white stretching through it. They set it in the dirt in front of her. Now that I look at it, that would go nicely with the rock of the lair, Galaka said. Needs a cushion, but it's about the right height for when I'm stirring the stew pot. You mean to use the onyx throne as a kitchen stool? Chael laughed again, but the madness was gone. I think I understand your lesson. Thank you, Galaka. Farewell. What lesson? Idiot humans, always digging for lessons and layers of meaning in everything. Still, the young human was a step up from most. Maybe he survived the bloodbath of human politics for a while. Galaka ducked into one of the tents to grab a bedroll. It wasn't like the previous owner needed it anymore. She draped it over the throne for padding and sat down. All right, humans, lift! The four immortal soldiers raised Galaka and her throne smoothly into the air. High King of the Winterlands? Who needed that? Galaka was perfectly content to be unquestioned lord of the Goblin Kitchen. Let's march. And then at the very end, you have this lovely illustration of Galaka on her throne. Okay. Jamie, could you please put the dogs out? Thank you all for tuning in, and that would be the doggies. What happens is the old whines because she wants to go out. The younger dog, who is a herding dog, immediately starts trying to tell the rest of us, oh, the dog needs to go out, the dog needs to go out, the dog needs to go out, even if the old dog forgets about it. So that's what you were hearing near the end there. But again, thank you. If you are interested in a copy for yourself, like I said, it's in the anthology Unidentified Funny Objects 6. Let's see. I will try to get this posted up on YouTube. If you have any feedback or comments or things that I could do differently for next time, let me know. I should do the self-promotional bit too. You can sign up for the newsletter at jimchines.com. You can follow me on Facebook or Twitter or your social media of choice. And because people kept telling me, I now have a Patreon. And I think that's about it. So, Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was a nice change of pace from everything else we've been hearing this past week. Oh, that's right. Melissa has a story in here too, don't you? I had forgotten about that. And it totally derailed what I was going to say. Oh, that's right. The one last question is, should I do this again? My son is nodding, and I know I've got to wait 20 seconds to get comments and feedback from the rest of you. It is kind of fun watching the likes and the LOL icons pop up in the middle of it. You know, I was kind of worried that I'm reading the story, but I'm not getting any immediate feedback. And all I have to do is look and see the icons pop. Oh, Kiri says that she's making cookies after listening to me describe cooking goblin style. And that frightens me.
Yeah.
That's just that. Don't. Do not make goblin cookies. Okay. I don't know exactly what the schedule will be for these. And I don't know exactly what I'll read next time, but I will figure something out. I will announce it and publicize it on Facebook, Twitter, and on the newsletter. And hopefully I will see some of you again next time. Thank you again. I hope you have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and be very careful what you eat. Night.